As I sit here tonight listening to the volley of artillery being sprayed overhead, it behooves me to finally address this particular content. Now, I've put it off for a while because of the sensitive nature of what I'm about to say. Let me preface this by saying that any life lost is precious. I don't want anyone misconstruing anything I'm saying on this rant tonight. Any foundational Black American who loses their life to the violent arm of white supremacy in regards to law enforcement, it's a precious life, especially when that life is taken through unjust means. So I want to preference that before we go any further with this rant tonight. All lost life to the violent arm of white supremacy of law enforcement is a precious life. So now I've gotten that out the way. Let me get into what I'm about to say. You're tuning in for those in the cheap seats. I want to talk about the Say Her Name campaign. Now, while on the surface I have no issue with this campaign, but as you know, on this channel, I like to take introspective looks at any particular topic I speak upon because things are levels deep. It's not just surface level, it's just not one level deep. Things are deeper than the average person perceives them. And so when you take in certain things in the media, you have to start peeling back the layers to see what this actually is saying. Now, the Say Her Name campaign on the surface looks innocent enough. It's a campaign acted upon to make sure that the foundational Black American women who lose their lives to the violent arm of white supremacy in the form of law enforcement are recognized. However, I think what a lot of people don't realize is that when we look at the numbers of how many foundational Black American women lose their life to the violent arm of white supremacy through law enforcement, it's about 6 to 10 a year. Whereas you look over the data in regards to foundational Black American men, it's about 300 to 400. So there's some unevenness going on here. And the reason that there's some unevenness going on here is because foundational Black American women are not looked upon as a threat. You're not a violent threat to white supremacy. Therefore, you're not beat upon as much as the men in your society. And that's just a fact. Anyone want to argue over that? Fine, you can argue that point if you like. I'm not here to argue with you over actual facts. What I'm telling you is Black women are not seen as a threat. Therefore, they're less likely to be beat upon by the violent arm of white supremacy in the form of law enforcement. That's just the truth. The numbers bear it out. 6 to 10 per year versus 300 to 400. Now, when you start looking at the data, you say, wait a minute. So only 6 to 10 foundational Black American women are no longer with us because of the violent arm of white supremacy in law enforcement versus the 300 to 400 foundational Black American men who are not any longer with us through unjust means through the hands of law enforcement or the violent arm of white supremacy of law enforcement. So when we get to start looking at these campaigns of saying her name, what are you really saying here? Because although I preface this at the beginning, all life is precious, we have 6 to 10 versus 300 to 400. Are you telling me that 6 to 10 is equivalent to 300 to 400? Because if you're telling me that, what you're saying to the world is that Black women's lives are more valuable than Black men's. And if we're saying that, then we have a problem. I realize that and I can't really call it a community because women and children do not make up a family, and families make up communities. In our societal structure, we have a matriarchal societal structure. So in that matriarchal societal structure, you're telling me that 6 to 10 foundational Black American women lives are just as equal as 300 to 400 foundational Black American men lives. What are we doing here? Like I say, a lot of this stuff sounds good on the surface, but when you start to analyze this, what exactly are you saying? You're saying that Black women's lives are so valuable that no matter how minute or small life that is being lost, when you compare it to that of Black men, then we're calling it even. It's equivalent exchange. This is complete and utter nonsense. Now, I'm not saying that those women who lose their life is not precious. All life is precious, especially when it's lost through injustice. But what you're not going to do is sit here and tell me that we have to make sure that the 6 to 10 who lose their life on the female side is equivalent to the 300 to 400 on the male side, and we have to acknowledge the 6 to 10. See, it's really easy to acknowledge the 6 to 10, but it's really hard to acknowledge 300 to 400. I get that. I'm not blind to that fact. But however, what you're not going to do is tell me that those 6 to 10, when you do your activism for those 6 to 10, we have to then forget about the 300 to 400 and say that the 6 to 10 is just as equal as the 300 to 400. Because what you're then saying is, no matter how many black women lose their lives, I should say no matter how small the amount of black women who lose their lives, is still equivalent to 300 to 400 black men who lose their lives. We will never have a community this way, because what you're saying in this matriarchal structure that we have in the black society, that the women lives are way more valuable than your men. And if you're saying that your men are disposable, what do you think others outside of your community? And I still hate saying that we have a community, because again, women and children do not make up a family, and families make up communities. What you're saying to society as a whole is that no matter how your men are beaten upon, it's not an issue until your women are beaten upon. And if you're saying that your men are not valuable enough to acknowledge that injustices created towards your men isn't as a value as injustices being perpetrated towards your women, then it's no wonder that your men are at the bottom. It's no wonder that your men cannot succeed, because the women in this society don't support the men, because the women don't view the men as valuable. If you don't see your men as valuable, you don't see your man as people who need love, you don't see your men as people who need care, you don't see your men as people who need nurturing, and you definitely don't see your men as people who need to be educated so they can be proper members of society. And this is where we're at. This is why this gender war is this gender war has to go away, because we're never going to have communities if we're at odds with one another. And if we're not seeing black men as valuable, we're going to continue to be at odds. You have to teach your women, you have to heal your women first, then you have to teach your women that their men are an asset to their community. Their men are valuable, and their men should have love, their men should have care, their men should have nurturing, and their men should be properly educated. That's all I have on this one tonight, man. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.